say that I love watching his channel. And even though I don't read a lot of the books he reads, I like to watch him because he's just so intelligent and enthusiastic and passionate about what he does. When he's on screen, that is just fun to watch him. So yeah, welcome, Usman.
Hey, Cliff. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that intro.
Yeah, pleasure, man. So tell me a bit about your reading background and yeah.
Okay. Well, I grew up not reading too much. I first got into reading maybe when I was about 12 years old. Started reading things like, there's this thing called Scholastic Book Fair, and they had a lot of children's books, but there was a series called Del Toro Quest by Emily Rada, and it's like a young fantasy series, and it's got multiple books, and it's just about this boy and this group of friends that have to collect a whole bunch of gems for a belt to save the world. But that was a series that originally got me into reading, and well, my life got a little sporadic after that, let's say. So I wasn't able to read until I became an adult again. Maybe in my late 20s is when I got back heavily into reading. And the formative series for me when I got back was The Rift War by Raymond E. Feist. So
that's one of my favorite authors. So when I was younger, that is a epic series. The Rift War, and then what's the Serpent War? Serpent War after that.
Serpent War, yeah. There's a lot of books in that one, but that was the one that reignited my love for fantasy. So I got into that, and from there I've just been reading, I guess, nonstop for a few years now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And you got a great channel for it as well.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. And what about the whole dark fantasy thing? Because I've noticed you like to be on the dark side. A lot of the books you speak about is not kind of, I know that there's a term, high fantasy, kind of the more gentle stuff. You like the more edgy stuff, don't you?
Yeah, the more grimdark, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You know, that just developed a couple years ago.
Say hello to my friend there, Bad.
Oh,
how you doing, man?
Bad is right.
Yeah.
Carry on. Yeah. So the grimdark thing was just a few years ago. I don't know. When I got back into reading, I discovered this whole community, I guess, and discovered a lot more different types of like different subgenres, I guess, because I guess I was so limited beforehand. But you know, looking stuff up more, being online more, being a part of this community, I discovered a lot more and discovered I like a lot of the darker stuff. It resonates with me more. You know, sometimes it's a lot more character driven, like especially the grimdark stuff. So that's the kind of stuff I enjoy, like gritty, character driven stuff that can make things seem a little more realistic, I suppose, in a sense. You know, that's the kind of stuff I like.
What is the difference, tell me, between dark fantasy and grimdark? Isn't it the same thing? They're both very dark.
They are both very dark. Yeah,
it kind of hints towards horror, I suppose, a little bit.
Yeah. There can be a fine line there, but there is a bit of a difference, I find. The dark fantasy is it can be very brutal and touch on some harsh themes, but grimdark I find is like very mostly character based. So it's character driven, and it's got really, like, you could say, morally gray characters. So there's no clear good guy, bad guy. Everybody's just kind of gray, and they're just more human and making
Bad
tough
mistakes,
decisions, trying to survive, that kind of thing.
So, that sounds very interesting. So that's morally gray, grim. That just makes sense. What did she say? What is an example of a dark fantasy book? Okay, give me an example of a dark fantasy book and a grimdark book, and to show the difference, sort of explain the difference.
Sure. So A dark fantasy book that I just read recently would be The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee. So it follows a huge cast of characters. It's huge world building. Some really dark stuff happens, like there's a holy war and a lot of death and whatnot. But the characters, some of the characters, like purely like, okay, this is a good character. Okay, they have good intentions, good motivations. This is
very
bad.
Very clear good versus evil on either side.
You can usually tell who's the good person. Okay, this is a bad person. They're inherently bad. So that's the difference. But with grimdark, like for grimdark, I just read, and the term grimdark is, it's used like, some people don't like it. A lot of people don't like it. They're like, "What is grimdark?" Like, it's still this I guess this newer thing that's
newer genre, something.
Still kind of being developed, and a lot of people are still unclear about it. And I don't have all the answers, but a grimdark, I guess a technically grimdark series I read recently was the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. So that's
I think I might have read that a long time ago. The first book. It's something Blade itself. Yeah. I think I might have read that a long time ago, but I can't really remember it enough to comment. I think I enjoyed it. So I've read a bit of fantasy, eh?
No, I know, and I know you like Rift War as well. That was cool when I discovered that.
Oh no, I love that. And I actually feel like that every month I do a TBR, and I'm going to start throwing a fantasy or something like that, like one book a month, along with all the horror, and I'll call that my palate cleanser.
Right.
Basically, like when I'm sick of the extreme horror and the blood and guts and the really hectic stuff that I read, I'll have that book aside. Just so for the last few months, I've been reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Have you read that?
No, I saw the movie. I haven't read the book.
Book's 10 times better.
10 times better. Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Leslie.
Hello.
No, I fully. You should actually read that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's wonderful.
Okay, and does that have like multiple books in a series, or is that okay?
Yeah. The first one is called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm just looking through the comments. Not too much, because otherwise I get completely distracted. And then it's Life, the Universe, and Everything. There's one episode called So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. He's a little bit like with the Terry Pratchett mindset, but I like it a lot more. It's a mixture of humor, very bizarre humor, fantasy and science fiction, completely off the wall, but it's brilliant. I like it. But it's completely unique, and it's an absolute classic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out, because I know. Did you say Discworld didn't really work for you, or this is better? This you enjoyed more, at least?
It's strange that Discworld, there's something about it that did not work for me, and maybe I read the wrong book, because I know there's hundreds of books in the series. But I think I read Color of Magic, and I just thought, no, this is crap, and I put it down, and I haven't tried anything since. But maybe if I chose the right book, I might enjoy it. But I know they're very similar writers, and they actually join forces in some books. But Douglas Adams, his voice, I really enjoy. Terry Pratchett, not so much.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Check that out.
So there's a couple of books you wanted to show me. Were they horror books or dark fantasy or something else?
No, I had a few recommendations for. Well, these are like the closest things that I've read that I suppose have like horror elements.
Yeah.
The closest things that I've read. So I haven't really read any horror. For the audience, but I'm hoping to rectify that. Hopefully this year I want to get into horror as well. Like a lot of horror authors are on my list, like Stephen King, or I maybe want to check out Clive Barker as well. But I just had some books here. I've also read a lot of self-published work recently. I've been diving into a lot of self-published stuff.
Indie horror, indie authors.
Yeah, indie authors.
Yeah, well, self-published is,
Yeah.
it's tough to get into the market there. They need attention, eh?
Yeah, and I didn't even realize when I got into reading, like there's this whole other section which is self-published and independent work. It's like the bottom of the iceberg. It's so huge, you know?
Yeah,
Crazy huge.
and they deserve more attention, I think, from booktubers as well, because they're not spoken of. I know that there are a lot of booktubers out there that focus almost solely on self-published authors and indie authors. And yeah, I think I need to give that more thought to my channel as well. Yeah, I mean, I actually read quite a few horror novellas now that I get on my Kindle, which have got almost no recognition on Goodreads. So I think, yeah, you would call those probably self-published indie authors. Yeah, not big names, but more deserving.
Yeah, so, for sure. Oh yeah, another of my like formative series was the Halo series. Have you read Halo or heard of that video game?
I played the game. Yeah, but I've never read the series.
Okay, no, the book series was great. I think I read some of them in high school, and they have some horror. There's some horror elements in Halo. You know, the Flood, right? You played the game, so you know that alien race, the Flood.
Not very often, not very well.
Okay.
I was good at games like Diablo, where you just have to point and click, kill everything in your path. I was very good at those. But when it comes to, Skyrim, I did pretty well. But when it comes to the, part-time gamer.
Okay, yeah, no. So the Flood, this alien race in Halo, that was pretty horror-esque, I suppose. When I read that, you know, it kind of scared me a little bit, but I guess that's some of the closest stuff I could relate to horror. So Halo, and then there's this other book that I've been reading recently called Renia. It's a self-published work, Renia by Carl Forshaw. It's a dark fantasy, but it has some horror elements as well. Same kind of thing with the, you know, alien race kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
I want to interrupt you for a second. Leslie says I'm going to get lost in this conversation. I haven't read much fantasy of any kind. I'm going to say to Leslie, don't worry, we are going to move into horror. Okay. We're going to try and move into a little bit of horror because I've got some recommendations for him and some recommendations of how to get into horror. But I think it's important to sometimes listen to other genres and to think about other genres because it's also genres out there in fantasy. There's actually a lot of horror elements in dark fantasy, and as you said with grimdark, it's some very bleak themes. A lot of violence, morally grey characters. So yeah, there's definitely crossovers between the two, right?
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So I know that you had some questions for me about horror.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to have a little sip, and then you can ask me those questions.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm not very familiar with the horror genre, but I basically wanted to know if it was kind of like fantasy, where there are many different subgenres. Because I know there's dark fantasy, there's epic fantasy, urban fantasy, all kinds of fantasy. It's very wide. So I want to know if horror is kind of like that.
Yeah. There's loads of subgenres. For instance, I know my friend Bad is Rad. Her channel, she speaks a lot about extreme horror. It's that kind of horror where you really push the envelope. You go where authors just don't go. So it's just about everything is taboo, and they try to just really, not for everyone at all. But then you get the more, you get body horror. Clive Barker does a lot of that in his early books of blood, short stories, which are actually really good. And I would recommend you actually read short stories before you read longer horror, because then you get an idea, like Stephen King's Skeleton Crew. You can go for some compilations like Dark Forces. There's a lot of horror compilations with different authors. You can get a feel. And that just gives you an idea. Dark Forces, but there's loads. I mean, if you read any short stories, it gives you an idea of how the author writes. If you gel with him, And then Clive Barker's Books of Blood is the early introduction to body horror. Other books that are other subgenres are Gothic, like the vampire romance.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not too big into that.
Mm-hmm.
But Dracula doesn't have to be romance. Dracula is an excellent example. Hey, too many to think about off the top of my head. But I love also post-apocalyptic, like end of the world scenarios, which you get in fantasy ones, right?
Yeah.
You get that in fantasy.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in science fiction, you get dystopian worlds, which is quite similar.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really enjoy that. But yeah, I'd have to think there's quite a bit of other kind of stuff like that.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And other questions?
So the more prominent ones, I guess, what are like the more prominent or popular ones? Is it extreme and body horror?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I suppose you get I'm trying to think now. Put me on the spot here. I've actually made a video about it,
Really?
I actually made a video about it.
Oh, I need to check that out.
Yeah, Gothic horror is pretty popular.
Okay.
And then now you've actually got me in a mind thing here.
Okay.
And bad there, because you know what other types of horror are there? Did you lose me there for a second?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Internet. Remember, we got no power, so
right.
Yeah. But yeah, there's body horror, Gothic horror, supernatural, very popular. So basically, you got ghosts and paranormal, like haunted house stories.
Mm-hmm.
So those are probably the most popular, actually. A lot of people like to read about. They like to read about ghosts and like The Shining. Stephen King, The Shining. I think you'll enjoy that. It's terrifying. But there's lots of different kinds of subgenres. You just have to look around.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Other questions you have for me?
Oh yeah. So I know in fantasy there are a lot of common tropes, I guess, or like the way stories run and like endings. But I wanted to know in horror, because like I've seen some movies, right? And they all kind of have like a lot of them have very ominous endings or like crazy twists that are like pretty dark and like kind of scary as well. But I want to know,
you enjoy that?
I do sometimes, but I want to know if they all are like that, have like endings that are very ominous and crazy twists. No,
absolutely not. Like I said, there are. I mean, I only mentioned about 5 subgenres. I'm sorry, there are lots more. I can't think of everything off the top of my head. And every horror author has something different to offer. I just recently read a book that was beautifully written. You would classify it as horror, and it was called "Stirring the Sheets" by Chad Lutzke, and it was more about grief and loss and pain, and the inability to let go of that. So it was a very short novella, and it's about this man who works at a funeral home, and he's lost his wife a year ago, and he still can't cope with it. He's losing it. He still keeps her side of the bed untouched. You know what I mean? It's an old man, and they were married for 50 years. And the way this guy writes it, but anyway, he works at a funeral home, and he finds a corpse that resembles her, and he decides to take it home with him. You see, that's the only real horror element in the whole story. And the way it ends, I'm not going to tell you, but it's like a kind of bittersweet. But it's a different. So every horror story is different. Even Stephen King writes completely different kinds of things. Not everything is going to be like shock horror, everyone dies, that kind of thing. You just have to find what kind of story gels with you. And that's why it's a good idea to read lots of short stories. But also Stephen King is a good bet. And if you want all out horror, then read his early stuff, like Pet Sematary, that kind of thing. The Stand. If you love characters, you should read The Stand.
The Stand. Okay.
Yeah, And another favorite of mine, a new author that I'm absolutely falling in love with, is Robert McCammon. And he wrote Swan Song.
Right.
But that is just a post-apocalyptic horror with the most incredible characters, set in a world after a nuclear holocaust. So it's a devastated world, and some really messed up characters. That is a very, very good book. In fact, my favorite book. So
wow.
try that out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, guys, I guess you say, welcome back. I'm just having a look at our comments here, and it looks like we've got our 3 big fans here. Don't have too many more here, so we need to start talking about horror.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Leslie says at the bottom here, horror is all over the place, which is why it's my favorite genre. And she's right. Like I say to you, you start reading it, it's not all crazy. And there's different types of horror, and it's written in different kind of ways. And I want to show you 2 books quickly that I think you will love.
Okay.
First of all, my favorite author, well, after Stephen King, is Clive Barker. And I showed off another one of his books last week, but I think you should read Imagica. It's a big, chunky book, as you can see, big book, but it's incredible world building, incredibly imaginative, and it's a nice blend of dark fantasy and horror because he writes very good horror. But he just mixes things up. He's just so imaginative in the way that he writes. But if you want to compare this to some of his horror, then you read the Books of Blood, and believe me, that is dark. That is dark stuff. The Books of Blood. And that's short stories. I think you'll really like them.
Right.
And I've noticed that, heard you mention that you've had this author before, but Perdido Street Station, China Mabel.
Yes, I have that book. I haven't read any of his stuff yet, but I have the book ready to go.
It's a mix of horror, fantasy, science fiction, steampunk, and there's all sorts of stuff just thrown into the pot. It takes place in the city, weird and magical creatures, but weird creatures, a crazy scientist, all sorts of, it's very weird. It's weird fiction, but I think you might go for it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm down for that.
You're down for that? Yeah. So what other questions?
That's all I have at the moment. We'll see as the chat progresses.
Yeah. Okay, so what horror were you thinking? You said to me Stephen King was something that you were thinking of?
Yes,
what
he's on my list. What other? Oh, there we go. Dan Simmons. I also have I want to check out some of his horror because I have all the Hyperion books, the Hyperion Cantos. So yeah, I've heard he's good. I've heard he's good.
Have you read any of his science fiction books?
I haven't read any of his stuff. I was going to start with Hyperion and see, and then maybe check out some of his horror stuff because I know he wrote some good horror books, if I'm not mistaken.
I've read 2 incredible books by him. Sorry, I've got a comment to that effect right here. Don't forget Dan Simmons.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, I read Carrion Comfort, which is a phenomenal horror story, as well as my favorite book from last year, which is The Terror. It's actually a historical horror set in the Arctic. And I think it's based on the Franklin expedition, where they tried to discover this kind of exit going out of the North Pole or something. I can't remember all the details, but the ships get stuck in the ice. It is harsh. It is bleak. The men start freezing to death. They start dying of starvation, and they get off the ship and start trying to find some kind of exit from this place. It is very, very harsh, but it's brilliant. As long as you got a bit of patience in terms of detail, because Dan Simmons writes in a lot of detail, even with Carrion Comfort, and I can imagine he probably does the same with his science fiction. A huge attention to detail, characters and research and all sorts of things. But I think you'll probably enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Good.
Yeah.
See a
I'm trying to
question.
just see the boundaries here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far will you push the boundaries with horror? What are your triggers?
Ooh, Bad has got some things to say about that. She's got no trigger. She doesn't care. She doesn't care.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be doing a book review of a sequel to a book that we read together a couple of months ago, I think it was, and it is The Black Farm by Elias Witherow. Now that book is extreme horror, is just violent, nasty, terrifying, horrifying, just it's sickening at times. It just seems gratuitous to a lot of people, but the world building in this place. It's basically this couple.
Yeah.
They're going through a rough time. They lose their child. He loses his job. They're not make everything. It's just one thing on top of another, and they decide to take their lives. And they think they're going to live in peace afterwards. So they commit suicide, and they find themselves on this place called the Black Farm, which is probably just a little bit worse than hell. So I'm not going to say anything more about it, but it's the torture, and that's that kind of thing. If it's written well, and there's good world building, and I'm in with the characters, I can handle that.
Yeah.
Animal brutality, I struggle with. I'm just looking at these at the same time. Animal brutality, I struggle with. I don't like that. Although I've read books where it's hectic, I don't really like that much. But there is a little bit of for me, there's a limit. Babies getting eaten, that kind of thing, In some books, seriously, there's no limit. Wait, we got a question here.
Yeah.
From my wife.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I was just thinking about this, and honestly, I've been trying for a few years now. I think that's a part of why I've been reading darker stuff and grimdark. I haven't found any triggers for myself yet. I don't know if I will in the future, but I don't think I don't know. As of right now, I don't really have any triggers. So I'm willing to push the boundaries, maybe as far as I can.
Yeah.
So,
Then a good place to start would be Clive Barker.
yeah.
That Stephen King also goes pretty dark, but if you start with Clive Barker, The Books of Blood, that is pretty damn dark. And he's almost seen, I think, in some way, I don't know, I've heard it somewhere that he's almost like the grandfather of extreme horror, or kind of splatterpunk, because of the subject matter that he raises in his horror. It gets very dark, but it's nothing compared to what people are writing today. But maybe if you want to ease yourself into that, read some Stephen King short stories, read some Clive Barker stories. Let's see if we've got some other things here. Fantasy is great for... That's bad again. Fantasy is great for neat details. Horror I like when it's smooth, easy writing. Can horror be a lot of detail writing? Can't keep up. You get that? I mean, it's great. Horror I like when it's smooth, easy writing. Yeah.
Horror being a lot of detail writing.
Yeah. And I don't like too many characters. I suppose that's a problem with fantasy, because sometimes you've got a huge host of characters, right?
Yes.
You've got to follow like what's going on here, everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. And then she read The Black Farm with me. It's one book that terrified me. Yeah. And it is. I wouldn't go into that first, believe me.
Okay.
It's extended torture scenes that you cannot believe. And there's cannibalism, and there's torture, and there's maiming, and it's just really... hi, Nim. How you doing? Okay. Hello. So yeah, there's a little bit of everything. There's a little bit of everything that goes on. So it's better to start with like Stephen King, in my opinion. And start with some of his short stories. If you enjoy them, maybe pick up a novel like Cujo. pick up Cujo or The Stand or one of his shorter novels. Early novels is better because he writes a lot better horror there. He has become a little bit more complex. He's still writing today. But his earlier novels are, if you just pick them up and give it a go, like Pet Cemetery, The Shining, not too long, not like The Stand. The Pet Cemetery, The Shining, Cujo, books like that, and any short story collections. That's what I would go for. And if you want to push yourself, Clive Barker's Books of Blood. So yeah, let's just see.
Okay.
Do a cool and epic beginner guide. What did she say? I need to do a cool and epic beginner guide to extreme horror, my friend. You do so well. Okay, yeah. So any other stuff? Let's just chat, man.
Yeah, so I do plan on, I'm probably going to start with Stephen King because I have a bunch of his books already.
What do you have?
They're on the shelf. I have It, I have Cujo. I got a couple of his Dark Tower books as well because I want to get into that. Maybe hopefully this year.
That's a phenomenal series. And if anything, you'll probably enjoy that more than anything else. Because it's such a blend of all sorts of genres. Horror, a little bit of kind of weird science fiction-y stuff, or more post-apocalyptic fantasy.
Yeah.
It blends all sorts of things. I think you'll really enjoy that, Joe.
Yeah, I'm hoping I do. I do, but that's on the plan. But Stephen King is just one of those authors where I want to read like basically everything. He's written. He's got a lot of work, but seems to be a lot of good work. So I have that. I have The Institute. I have The Outsider. And I know a lot of his books are part of series too. Is that correct? Like,
a lot of his books are part of
like little series. Like I think I heard Mr. Mercedes is part of something like a little set.
Yeah. That's a series I'm actually reading now. I'm actually reading a final in a trilogy, but that's not horror. That's crime.
Oh, okay.
You find that he writes. You find he writes in a lot of different genres these days.
Oh, okay.
The only epic series that he's ever written, as far as I can remember now, I might be completely wrong, is The Dark Tower, which I'd love to read again before I die. It's phenomenal. But a lot of his early books are standalone. And his best books, my wife says Salem's Lot. Leslie recommends Night Shift and Salem's Lot as well. Both of them do. Great Minds Think Alike. Salem's Lot is excellent. If you like the idea of vampires, something to get into. Very slow burn. I have to warn you, it's a very slow burn. First half, you get used to the town and the characters and what's happening. And a lot of his stories, just be warned with Stephen King. There's my dog outside when I talk about vampires. A lot of his stories are about small towns. And it's almost like the small town becomes a character. It's like the people in the small town and how they turn against each other and their interactions. And it's almost like the horror of these people as opposed to not just the monsters out there. Sometimes the people are the monsters. And he'll throw in the supernatural thing, but it's so much more sometimes about these towns that become characters. And he's so good with that, writing about that. Okay, let's see if anyone's else got recommendations. No, they're not coming fast and thick enough. Gareth, Book Songs and Other Magic. Hey, Gareth, good to see you, man. Okay, Salem's Lot is one of my favorite. Yeah, it's fantastic. Do you have that? Do you own that one?
Salem's Lot, no. I want to pick that up though. That's on my list for sure now, especially now. But
yeah, it's in my top 20. But then again, I've read most of his work. So, and it's my wife's favorite one. So you can go with her recommendation. It's very good, very very good.
Yeah, see, I like how you're talking about like characters like making these decisions and like kind of having conflict with each other. This all sounds like my kind of book. I think I'd enjoy horror a lot. So from everything I hear about it.
Well, Stephen King he's just an incredible storyteller. He's I just want to see this. Oh man, I hated Salem's Lot. Okay, Oh, sorry, Nim. You hated Salem a lot. But I have the worst unpopular Stephen King opinions. Okay, then. Oh, Let the Right One In. Oh, yeah, Gareth. You have to read that. That's one of my favorite books. Okay, this is not Stephen King, but this is one of my favorite books of all time.
Okay.
And this is by a Swedish author called Thomas Lindquist. And it's called Let the Right One In. It's actually a movie as well. Very good movie. It's terrifying. Vampire story. Absolutely terrifying. So, yeah, worth giving it a go. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. But my favorite, my top three, I have to be honest, is The Stand.
The Stand. Yeah.
Is The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
And is It. If you want to read something terrifying, very big, read It. Very good. Small town. A group of kids called the Losers Club have to fight this evil, as well as these bullies. Bullies are horrible. And these kids all come from broken homes. And they have to band together to fight this evil. And the interesting thing is it's a coming of age story. And it shows these kids, but it also shows them as adults and the effect of what happened as adults. And they still have to fight. So it's brilliant. I mean, it's most people's favorite Stephen King.
Yeah.
But like everyone says, if you want to find a place to start, maybe the best place to start is one of these less chunky novels like Salem Blot or something like that. But I can guarantee you The Shining as well. It's not that long. I love that. But yeah, everyone has different opinions. You just need to explore. I think all the books you just got to go for it.
Yeah, I've heard people say, start with the short stories and check them out. One person mentioned different seasons. It was a good place to start.
Oh, yeah. It's a good place to start out with King, but not his horror. Because most of the stories in different seasons are not so much horror. You've got, besides, I think it's At Pupil in there, but there's two that were made movies. The Body, which became Stand By Me. I don't know if you've seen that film.
I don't think so.
Stand By Me, group of boys that find a body. Very famous. Okay, and then The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, yeah.
The Shawshank Redemption, and he wrote that as a short story. So that became a movie, The Shawshank Redemption. But he's a storyteller. He's a genius. Pick up anything you've got. I think you'll be fine. Eh? But start with these short stories. It doesn't take long. Pick up something. My favorite is Skeleton Crew, which I showed you.
Yeah.
A lot of people like his first one ever, which is very creepy. It's called Night Shift.
Night Shift. Okay.
Night Shift. It's better to explore his earlier work. If you're going to explore his later work, you might be disappointed.
Okay.
Better as a horror writer when he was earlier, 70s, 80s. Stephen King.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many books does he have? He's got a lot. I know, like a whole.
He's got a lot. I think he's got about close to 80 now. I've read about 52, 53. So I've got a long way to go. I want to finish everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hang on. What is this? Start longer than short stories, but not novels. Yeah, he's right. But it's not horror, but it's a good way to introduce yourself to King, right? So it's a good way to just At Pupil. I did a review on that, Leslie. Yeah, At Pupil is terrifying, and that's in different seasons. I think that is one of the books in different seasons that you can classify as horror, novella, whereas the other three are more, just incredible storytelling for me.
Good.
Yeah. What's this here? I'm just seeing if you got anyone new saying hello. I have a book, Dave, but not yet. Fairy Tale.
Stephen King's.
I have the book, Dave. It's here somewhere. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you, Dave. Welcome, my friend. Thanks, Dave. I haven't read this yet. I actually read, and you'll love this. This is a fantasy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, sort of fantasy. He writes very good fantasy. Good to see you, Dave. Thanks for reminding me about Fairy Tale. Because he also writes some other really good dark fantasy stroke horror. He wrote the Talisman, which I love.
Talisman. Okay.
which is a story of a young boy, and his mother is dying of cancer, and he has to take a journey to find a talisman to heal his mother. And he has to take this journey across America. But there are twin worlds, America and a kind of America's twin called I can't remember, but it's this other world with sort of different creatures. It's kind of a wild ride, but it's definitely comes across as a fantasy. And then he also wrote a story for his daughter called Eye of the Dragon, which I actually loved. I really enjoyed it. People don't like it. It's absolute rubbish, but I really, really enjoyed that. So he's got fantasy stuff out there as well. I'm glad I got reminded of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to read pretty much all his stuff. That's going to be a challenge, but that's the plan, hopefully.
Yeah. No, you'll get there. But I suppose what I'm trying to do is to maybe help you make decisions on where to read next.
Yeah.
And then when I interview you again, when you've read some Stephen King, I'm going to welcome you over to the dark side.
Oh, I'll be ready. Yeah, I'll be ready to chat. I'll be seasoned horror reader.
Horror reader, yeah. Because I kind of thought you had read a little bit of The Dark Tower. Did you say not?
No, not yet. It's on the list. Maybe, hopefully this year, I'm going to read Dark Tower.
Yeah. Bad asked me, have you ever read the rare edition Rage by Stephen King? I haven't read the rare edition, but I have read Rage by Stephen King. And it's not his best work. It's actually not. He was very young and angry. And this is a book that basically is about a school shooting. And Stephen King took it out of publication. He actually removed it because apparently some school shootings were taking place as a result of this book, this story.
Oh, wow.
So he took it off, and he would very much regretted writing this. But yeah, I wasn't particularly impressed with that story. But it wasn't terrible, but it was when he was very young and angry, and just not the best story in my opinion. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's quite something, eh? Hang on.
Oh. Okay.
She's reading The Gunslinger.
Oh, all right. Oh, good to know. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of good things, a lot of great things about it. So
about The Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna do a video quite soon where I'm gonna rank The Dark Tower, spoiler free. I'm looking forward to doing that, but it's going to be kind of difficult to do it spoiler free. Actually, it's going to be very difficult to do it spoiler free. I wanted to do it with spoilers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I bet there's a lot that goes on there in that series.
There's a hell of a lot that goes on.
Yeah.
It's very complex, and he considers it as his masterpiece. So he basically speaks of it as his work's life, his masterpiece. So that's saying something.
Yeah.
And the fact that I want to reread it says something as well. Yeah. So after our chat now, we'll chat a bit more, but after our chat now, so what are the first books you're going to read by him?
By King?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to check out Skeleton Crew now for sure. Probably one of the first I'll get to. Skeleton Crew, different seasons, because someone else really recommended that.
Yeah.
And then Salem's Lot. I'm going to get to Salem's Lot. Pet Cemetery.
I consider Fairy Tale as well, because if you love fantasy, if you love fantasy, that's one of his newer works. But if you love fantasy, that might be a good stepping stone for you into King.
Okay. And I might just jump into like it, because it seems to be like everyone's favorite, so I gotta check it out. I might just jump into that early. And then Dark Tower for sure.
And Dark Tower. Yeah. And don't forget to not neglect. What do you call it? It's so difficult to work
The
with.
Shining. Okay.
Yeah. That's also in my top 3. I wouldn't neglect that. That is absolutely, and actually, I think that's his most terrifying work, to be honest, for
Shining.
me.
Okay.
That's the one that had the most effect on me, even more than Pet Sematary, which everyone says is just perfect horror novel. But The Shining scared the crap out of me. I remember being terrified by that book. So I would recommend that.
Okay. Yep. That's on the list.
Listen to Gareth. He knows what he's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might just go on a horror binge.
Go on a horror binge, man.
Yeah.
What's this now? What is that doing there? Because we're doing recommendations. Funny. She says Nightmares and Dreamscapes. Yeah, she loves that collection as well. And actually, a lot of people don't like that as much as some of the others. But what's nice about that is that there's a big variety of different stories. The Stephen King short stories.
Yeah.
So you've got stories about fingers that go, or hands and fingers that kind of start behaving independently from the body, weird things like that. You've got this kind of story about this couple that goes missing in London. You've got all these strange stories. It's actually quite a good collection. But my favorite is Skeleton. My favorite is Skeleton Crew.
Okay.
And their books, there's short stories in there that are absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And they're short. And really, they are terrifying.
All right.
So, yeah.
I'm excited. I just remembered I have The Bazaar of Bad Dreams as well on the shelf. Is that a good one?
I'm trying to remember what I read from there. It's kind of not in my top. It's not in my toffee. But they are in every one of these collections. What other collections have you got? Tell me what other stories you got by him.
So I got that. The Institute, The Outsider, Cujo, the Dark Tower books, and
Cujo. Yeah. You know that he worked. You know that in his 70s and 80s he was fully alcoholic, so high on drugs, just completely spaced out most of the time. And he actually said that with Cujo, he couldn't remember writing it.
He couldn't remember writing it. I think I heard that somewhere.
He couldn't remember a word that he wrote.
Wow.
He was just so high that I think he was high on coke or something, and he just couldn't remember. I couldn't remember writing a word. And that book is wild, man. That book is wild. It's not my favorite by him, but yeah.
What else?
That's
crazy. Yeah. Trying to remember. I think it's just that The Bazaar of Bad Dreams. I think that's it for King. I don't think I have anything else on the shelf, but I do plan on picking up a lot of his stuff. Like I've seen stuff in stores like Under the Dome.
I haven't read that. My wife loves that. I haven't read that. But if you like, and she should actually say something here, because if you like a lot of characters fighting against each other, I know the premise is that I actually DNF'd that after 100 pages. That's one of only 2 books that I've ever DNF'd by Stephen King. And I want to go back into it. I do want to go back into it because a lot of people like it. But it's like this dome that covers this town, and out of nowhere, you have this dome. So the people are trapped, and resources are running out. And some people are more aggressive than other people. And it's apparently very, very good. But then you have that thing where everything becomes grey. Morally, everyone turns on one another. Screw another. It's supposed to be very good, but I haven't read that one yet. I think The Shining. What did she say? Institute is also really good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Horror. Yeah, but Under the Dome, and another one that I'd recommend if you like that kind of town turning on each other. I forgot about this. Is Needful Things. Needful Things. Very underrated. And you got the stranger comes to town and he opens a shop. And in the shop is your heart's desire. But you got to do him a favor. You got to play a prank on your neighbor, on someone. You got to do something, and then you'll get this thing. your heart's desire. So it's like selling your soul, sort of thing. And yeah, it's a wild thing. It's really fun. But yeah, no, you're gonna have to make your own plan there, buddy.
Yeah, this is tough because like all these premises, they sound so interesting, and there's so much there's so much to get to. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm excited. That's it.
Yeah.
I actually was going to ask the audience. Wait, here we go. Yeah, don't need a long run with lots of characters by focusing on how people's real character traits come out in times of disaster. So in other words, people turn on each other. People get very nasty. And Stephen King likes doing that with people, not just in his book. In all the books you'll read, he's very good with characters. He's brilliant with characters. But the thing about Stephen King is that no one is safe. Don't think that you're going to love this character through the whole novel and the character's safe. No one is safe in his books. So, you can think, what the hell just happened? But you can fall in love with a character, but be prepared that something will happen. So, yeah.
And is that purely a Stephen King trait, or do a lot of fantasy, or do a lot of horror authors do that? Like nobody's safe kind of thing.
There are a lot of horror authors. They're all different. So I don't know. I mean, there's some are very predictable, some are very unpredictable. But we're talking about King because he's the best.
Yeah.
If you and it doesn't matter what people say. People get tired of hearing about King, but the fact is he's the best. That's why he's the most successful. And he's the best storyteller, and he's the best out there, in my opinion. I love Clive Barker. He's much darker with his horror. I love Robert McCammon. Just the sheer scope of Swan Song is breathtaking. But I can't really talk for there are other authors out there that are very popular, like Dean Koontz, that I haven't cared for that much. Graham Masterton, which I'm reading now, very, very gory body horror. Every author's different and approaches thing in a different way.
Okay. Yeah.
But if you think about it, the very nature of horror, people shouldn't be safe. I mean,
and I asked that because that's one of my favorite things is when characters aren't safe. I don't like. I like that unpredictability, and you run into that in fantasy a lot.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, I'm going to really enjoy horror, and I guess specifically Stephen King, because that's one of my favorite elements. I don't like my characters being safe.
And also, he doesn't always have happy endings. His endings are very unpredictable. People don't like him. Yeah. And I think I will actually enjoy some dark fantasy, but maybe some more grimdark fantasy, because I like that idea as well. Is that you in a genre where you're reading things and people aren't necessarily just going to be safe. They could die because people die. So just because they're in a book and they're your favorite character doesn't save them from save them, right?
Yeah, that's why I like a lot of the darker stuff and grimdark and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Gareth. I'm going to be reviewing a book very soon read by him. He's very good, Graham Masterton. He's a British author. Usman, he's a British author, but he's gross. He's disgusting. But the Mirror is a very good one by him. Sorry, she agrees with me. The King is the best. I'm just going to go through these. The Institute, not horror. Man, it is a good read. Yeah. I don't know, ladies. I think it's horror. Maybe it's kind of a weird supernatural thriller. I don't know. I think the Institute is underrated. Gareth, I have some. Oh, you must check his channels out, eh?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Book Songs and Other Magic.
I do. I'm familiar with that channel. Yep.
Yeah. He reads. I think a little bit of everything. But you must take note of these channels. There's some good channels here. I don't think Leslie has a channel. If she does, she's going to kill me. So I've never ever watched it. But Graham Masterton, I've got a big collection, and I did a video recently of him. I've read about 3-4 books by him now, but they've been hit and miss. He also goes off on the most weird tangents possible, and his books get freaking gory. Look, the one I'm just read now is about this guy who discovers this old building in the woods, okay? And it used to be an insane asylum, absolute lunatics, like 130 of them that are kept there, the worst of the worst, cut off from the rest of the world. And this guy finds this place and he looks at the location and thinks, I want to turn this into like a golf club or something. He doesn't know its history. And for some strange reason, his kid, these lunatics learn how to escape through this kind of magic thing, okay? And they escape into the walls, but they can't get out. They're trapped in the walls, and they can pull you. And they pull his son into the walls as a hostage until he can set them free. Otherwise, they're going to kill his son. But it is so gross, so disgusting, so creative. But it's just, it's one of those strange books you don't know.
What's that called again?
The Walkers. I'm not going to look for it now because there's no power. I'm going to stumble through the dark, but it's called Walkers, yeah.
Okay. See,
Walkers by, yeah. Well, I'm gonna do a video on it in a couple of days. You can check it out.
And one that you've really hyped up for me, I don't know, I don't know where I should fit this in or if I should, but is Weave World. You've talked about that a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The reason I'm not talking about it tonight is because I've talked about it too much.
Yeah.
It's better than this in my opinion, Magica.
Okay.
It's part of his dark fantasy, really. A dark fantasy stroke horror. You got Weave World, you got Magica, you got The Great and Secret Show, you got Everville. He wrote a whole sort of dark fantasy series. Very, very imaginative, but with like a little bit of a horror injection.
Okay.
And so he writes that, and he's even written some YA stuff. I mean, like The Thief of Always. It's for kids, but I love it, and most adults will love it too. His horror novels are The Books of Blood, the short stories, The Damnation Game, it's pretty good, and oh man, I can't remember the other one now. It's gone off the top of my head, but it's a ghost story. But look, he's just my favorite author next to Stephen King. They're very different, but they're both brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to start reading a little bit of grimdark. I think maybe once a month, something, along with all the other stuff I read.
Yeah.
I like to get into that. So next time we chat, I'll actually be an absolute expert. You call me on your channel, and then we'll have a chat.
Yeah. Oh, sounds like a plan. Okay.
Just to see what people are saying here. The Red Hotel. Okay, I don't get this. The Red Hotel, the Red Door. That's a Graham Masterton book. I haven't read that. Okay. Famine. Yeah, she loves Famine. Red Hotel. I don't even own that yet. And then Gary says, yeah, it's creepy and atmospheric. Yeah. Now, because we got about 15 Graham Masterton novels. We got quite a lot. And most of them are my wife's. She's quite morbid when it comes to body horror with some of the stuff. But yeah, I would start with Stephen King. I'll start with Clive Barker. Yeah. And in fact, if you want a good dark fantasy epic, my third favorite fantasy book, my third favorite novel of all time is Weave World.
Weave World. Okay.
Yeah. It's about a magic world trapped in a carpet, under threat. So they're kind of in a magic rug thing. Or they're only magic, but they embroider themselves in this colorful. And yeah, they're a threat from external forces, and these humans get involved and have to protect them. And so it's kind of a lot of action, fantasy, all sorts of stuff happening. It's really interesting.
Okay, so give me a couple more authors here. I got Stephen King, Clive Barker. Those are the ones I'm going to check out for sure. Do you have like a couple more that make it to your top?
Robert McCammon.
Robert McCammon.
Okay, guys, how about you give? Oh, bye-bye, guys. Thanks for coming. Cheers, Gareth. Thanks for coming. Cheers, Leslie. Thanks so much for being here. I have to go get my mile, 6 miles. What?
6 miles.
Are you going for a run? Are you going for a run? Oh, okay. No, that's cool. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Stephen Graham Jones. Okay.
Stephen Graham Jones.
Write it down. I have not read this author yet, so I'm going to read this author. So write that down.
Yeah.
Trying to think of another author up and coming that I really, really like. You'd have to watch some of my videos.
Yeah. I gotta go back. It's been a while since I've seen him.
Yeah. Well, I've got a top 10 horror authors of all time. I've got them there. But I know that I've got Ray Bradbury there as well. And he's not really just horror.
Right,
he's
right.
Science fiction, fantasy. But I absolutely love Ray Bradbury.
Right.
But Stephen Jones is one I still need to read as well. I still need to get there.
Yeah, I've heard. I'm surprised you haven't read that one yet. I've heard a lot of great things about. I think it's called The Only Good Indians.
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah.
The really popular one.
That's coming. That's coming
Yeah.
by the end of the year. Yeah. But at the moment, I'm doing a book challenge, where I'm reading 100 books before I, what do you call it? Before I'm allowed to buy any more. So I have to read what's on my shelves, and I have to read my Kindle. So Stephen Graham Jones is just going to have to wait.
Probably a good plan.
Probably a good plan, yeah. Otherwise, I'll lose all my money. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Joe Hill. Yeah.
Joe Hill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. He actually wrote a book, and I can even give you the book you should read by him. It's called Nosferatu. Nosferatu, NOS. 4A2. So it's basically a number plate, Nosferatu.
Okay.
On Joe Hill. Yeah, that's an absolutely brilliant one. And also Heart-Shaped Box is very good by him.
Heart-Shaped Box.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's actually Stephen King's son.
Oh.
And a lot of people like him more than Stephen King. So the apple doesn't fall far from the cart in this one.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Joe Hill. What is Nosferatu a vampire one as well, or what?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting book. He's basically the best way to describe his book. He picks up kids in his I think it's a Rolls Royce Wraith with Nosferatu on the backplate. He's this old guy. He steals their soul. He picks up these kids and he takes them to Christmas Land, which is kind of in his mind.
Yeah.
That's a mental escape sort of thing, and transports them there, and they change. Takes them from their families, and then he has a hitman to do away with the parents. And it's very creepy. And then he runs into this protagonist who's awesome. Hey, Michael, how you doing, man? You've come here for the last comments, dude. Yeah, so he's basically this, like, what do you want to call it? Not a pedophile, but he takes his kids, and he justifies by saying he's taking these kids, and he's taking them because they're not loved by their parents. So he's taking them to Christmas Land where they'll live forever. And it's a weird concept because it's difficult to explain. You have to actually read it. And he runs into this protagonist who's brilliant. She escapes from him as a child. And then when she has a child of her own one day, he kidnaps the child. So she goes after him. So it's a very interesting book. And very good horror, very interesting. So yeah, I'd go with that.
Definitely can check that out.
What did she say? Oh, Michael, sorry, I don't understand how time works. That's okay, dude. I'm enjoying your interviews with that author. Very cool. Interviewing a very nice author. Okay. Last Rider is awesome. Still need to watch the show. Never seen the show. I didn't even know there was a show. Thanks for telling me. Now I need to watch the show too. But yeah, it's an awesome book. It's just the most interesting horror in there. And one of the characters, the what do you call the guy? Nosferatu, his assistant.
Oh, okay.
And he does a thing with the parents where, with the mommies, his job is to get rid of the parents, and he uses this gas on them to make them compliant.
Oh.
And then he takes his time with them and gets rid of them.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite dark, but hey, that's why it's horror.
Yeah, I'm excited. Sounds good.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was a show. Don't worry, Michael, man. It's okay. I've still got to watch your latest episode. Yeah. Okay, my man. I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that was lacquer. You should actually do that. Oh, you know what lacquer means, eh?
No, I don't.
It was really lacquer. It's a South African way for saying that was like really awesome.
Okay, lacquer.
Lacquer. Yeah,
lacquer.
Are you from California, or where are you from? You must be from the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm on the West Coast. I'm up in Vancouver, Canada.
Vancouver, that's even further. That's why you see such of a time difference, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
My brother actually lived in Vancouver for a while. He came back to South Africa because it's so damn cold there. But he loved the outdoor thing, the downhill biking and all that stuff. So
yeah, it's a beautiful place. I love it here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, so let's just see last thing with the thing. Okay, they're just having a chat between my wife and these other guys. Let's see if it's anything graphic novel. Okay. But anyway, we can chat after we go out of here. We've kind of done that. I think we had a good chat there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got tons of recommendations here. I have to get to reading all these, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, I should have got a few more from you.
Yeah, well, I got tons. We can chat after this. I got a lot of fantasy, grimdark stuff for you. Yeah. Sure.
Actually, once you've read a bit of Stephen King and Clive Barker and all that stuff, you'll have an idea of what I like.
Okay.
And then you can, once you've read a bit of a horror, you can know what's the best stuff for me to read from that genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to say goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching us. Really enjoyed that. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time. And we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.